Well, good evening. Once again, let me welcome you to the segment we call Insight Tonight. And tonight we want to understand a little bit more about cancer. We all know about this disease. Many of us have either been affected directly or indirectly. We've got family members that have suffered from this disease, friends, colleagues, members of society. We know this disease. We know how much it costs. We know its devastating effects on our health and our economy and our lives in general. Tonight, we want to get some insight about prevention. We also want to get some insight about managing this disease. And with us to help us understand this assignment, it's a really difficult assignment, I tell you. We've had conversations around cancer here quite a few times, and we've had a lot to be said. A lot has been said about this particular subject, but it's not easy to be able to encompass every single thing about it. But tonight we will try. We have two people here, experts in their own field. On the far end, we have Dr. Francis Makoha. Karibu.
Thank you.
I understand you are the head of human research at Mount Kenya University.
Yes, yes.
Excellent, excellent. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
And then we also have Dr. Rahma Mkuu, who's a chronic disease and science researcher at the University of Florida in the United States. Karibu sana.
Asante, asante.
All right, all right. Now, Dr. Francis, cancer. When you talk about cancer, everyone has a chill, just rolling down their spine. Everyone is scared, everyone is afraid. Talk to us about, as a head of research, from the research that you've seen, what are some of the most prevalent cancers we've seen around the country, the ones that are responsible for majority of the cases? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Cancer in Kenya is a debate that is going on, and it's something that we keep talking about at the moment. Now, in Kenya, the most frequently diagnosed cancer is breast cancer, which constitutes about 16% of all the cancer cases that are reported in the country as per the reports of 2022. That's when the official report was released. And this is followed closely with cervical cancer, and then prostate cancer, then the cancer of the esophagus, affecting the food pipe.
Right.
And that is followed with the colorectal cancer, affecting the large intestine, almost the junction of the large intestine and the rectum. So those are the 5 topmost cancers. Now, of importance is that if you combine cervical cancer and breast cancer, which are affecting women, they constitute close to 30% of all the cancers that are reported in the country. So you find that our ladies are disproportionately affected by cancer. Not saying that men are not affected, they're also affected. So in the women, we have breast cancer, cervical cancer, followed by esophageal cancer as the top 3. While the men have prostate cancer as the most frequent, followed by the esophageal cancer, and then colorectal cancer as the top 3 frequently diagnosed cancers among men. But then I just need to add that there's so many types of cancer. Rather, cancer affects any organ of the body. And so there are those that are also reported, but the frequency may not be as high as the ones that I've mentioned. It
doesn't make them any less impactful, it's just that the frequency is...
They all need attention. Whether it is 3 people affected in the population, or 100 or 1 million people affected in the, losing one life is, or having, being diagnosed by cancer. It's just equal, regardless of the site that is affected.
That's right.
Yes.
Right, and Dr. Mkuu, Should you say Dr. Mkuu?
Yes.
Karibu sana.
Yeah, asante, asante.
What does the research say concerning a point that a lot of people appear to be somewhat conflicted about, which is that certain regions seem to get certain types of cancer and others, get different kinds of cancer, and therefore the approaches that work here do not necessarily work elsewhere. What would you say to that?
I think it is very complex. So in maybe 15 years ago, when you asked someone, about cancer in Kenya, we were at a very different place and maybe didn't have, the statistics or the equipment or we've come a long way in terms of having cancer centers around the country. And I think that it depends on, the environment definitely plays a factor in terms of cancer as a risk factor. Mm-hmm. So, air pollution we know is associated with cancer. So definitely depending on where you live, but we know that cancer, especially with known risk factors such as smoking, engaging in not engaging in physical activity. One of the other conditions that I study in Kenya is obesity, for example, and we see that in Kenya we have an increased burden of we call it the double burden of obesity and malnutrition. So it's very complex to understand. And yes, there are some regional variations in the types of cancer based on risk factors. So depending on maybe what you're exposed to in the environment, you may be more likely to be diagnosed with cancer. For example, being exposed to pesticides, for example, is also associated with a higher increased risk of cancer. But luckily, we can prevent cancer, right. And so there's a huge opportunity to save lives through prevention. Right.
And speaking of prevention, a large part of that, I understand, would be screening. Now, somebody that we had in the studio a couple of weeks ago had a problem with just how early or how, at what stage of the cancer we actually are able to spot it. Mm-hmm. And they were of the opinion that a lot of people are catching the cancer at the later stages, lower stage 3 or stage 4 entirely. Mm-hmm. Talk to us about, what does the research say about prevention, about screening? I mean, are we screening more right now? Are we seeing better statistics because we're screening more? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes, so screening is key, especially when we think of the leading cancers, for example, even in Kenya, with breast and cervical cancer. I study cervical cancer in the US and in Kenya. Mm-hmm. In the US, cervical cancer used to be the leading cause of cancer death among women before the uptake of screening. Because of screening, cervical cancer is no longer a leading cause of death. We see cervical cancer deaths, we definitely see them in underserved populations in the US, populations who don't have access to care, specifically preventative care. We do see that they are dying because of not screening. Screening allows for early detection. We actually, when we screen for cervical cancer, we call it cervical cancer screening, but it's really cervical pre-cancer. When we screen,
what and we can,
pre-cancer means that, for example, when you screen a woman for pre-cancer, you're looking for the abnormalities in their cells, you're looking for abnormalities that might later lead to cancer, so we can catch abnormalities and treat them before they become cancerous. So right now, the problem is a lot of women are waiting until they feel the symptoms. Our research shows, especially with women who were current cervical cancer survivors, they shared with us that they waited until they felt that they were in pain, they were bleeding, so they're waiting until something is definitely wrong, and those are the signs of late stage cancer, to then seek care and get screened. And so when we use early detection as a tool, we are able to detect abnormalities before they turn cancerous. And that's why screening is key, and it's very important to follow the guidelines and really catch women before it's too late. And we can treat it faster. If cancer is detected, if the pre-cancer is detected earlier, they can be treated much quicker. And it's much cheaper. Unfortunately, we know cancer is a huge financial burden as well.
Yeah, and I'd like to talk about the cost of treating cancer a little bit later on in this conversation. But Dr. Makoha, from where you sit, where are the gaps when it comes to screening and prevention? Where are we dropping the ball? Where should we invest more in?
Yeah, I think it's one, our people aware, is our population aware of the importance of screening, taking up screening services that are available. So I think one is the service available. If you check of late, the government, especially something like breast and cervical cancer, there's a lot of campaign to tell the population to go for screening. And so have we trained the healthcare workers? The Ministry of Health is trying to build capacity for screening of both breast and cervical cancer, and even prostate cancer among the medical practitioners, and sensitizing them that this should be an integrated service among the other services that when you're going for maybe antenatal services, some of this can be a part of the service that you get during the time you are visiting. Now that helps to ensure that most of the eligible people are screened early enough, and at least once in 3 years you get a screening. It should be a way of early detection that we are talking about. Now the question then becomes, what does the population know? Do they know that they need these services?
So we know the services available.
The services are available.
But do the people know?
Do they know that
they take it up?
They should take it up. Now, the other challenge that we see is that in some communities or some places, yes, the people know that the service is available, but they're reluctant taking it. So if you talk about prevention, for example, the HPV vaccine has been shown to be very effective in other countries. And a recent study in Ireland, for example, showed that the women, the cohort that were first vaccinated, in that cohort, there's been no cervical cancer reported compared to the cohort that was not vaccinated.
That's a very compelling piece of data there.
Yes, so this is an indication that the vaccine works.
It works.
And it prevents the cancer that is a very big problem in Kenya and in sub-Saharan region in general, because sub-Saharan region bears the highest burden of cervical cancer. So this is, the vaccine is available in Kenya in every county, but the uptake, the rate at which the target population is taking up this service is what is worrying.
Do we know why?
So we don't know, maybe
something for more research, right?
Against vaccine. So there's a need, what I would say is that there's need for more community engagement programs where the buying and the drive to vaccinate comes from the community itself rather than a top-down talk. You know, if it's the government telling parents, take your girls for vaccination, then the parent does not see the importance of that, then there's suspicion, you know, questions that come. Why do they want to pump chemicals into my daughter? And some of us start asking those tough questions.
And there's some myths as well.
Do they want to sterilize
my child? Yeah.
Will I have grandchildren? So until the community buys into this service and sees the importance of it all, then it becomes a challenge. Whether the vaccines will be there, or but not. They may expire before they're utilized. So that's the situation that we have. So government is doing its part, but also we as citizens and communities, we need to be engaged to understand all this and then take that service. That's how it can become effective in preventing some cancers in the country.
It may be an oversimplification, but I suppose it takes two hands for a handshake, you know? So there's got to be availability of these things, and there's got to be an uptake for it to actually work. Dr. Mkuu, talk to me about people such as yourselves, researchers. Talk to me about the importance of research in fighting cancer, but also the importance of researchers talking to each other about what they find and how that can help to push back the tide.
Yes, it's very important in research, especially. In research, the most important thing that a researcher can do is be abreast of what is the latest research that is going on, so that we can also reduce duplication of research. So as a researcher working in Florida, for example, in the United States, and also who's very passionate about Kenya, because I'm originally from Kenya, and so I see a lot of parallels between cervical cancer in the US and in Kenya. It's a condition now that is really focused on the marginalized and underserved populations. And I think collaboration is key. And I'm here with Dr. Makoha as an example of our collaboration. I think that researchers have to. Nowadays, if you want to be a good researcher in terms of actually making an impact, it is imperative that collaboration and talking to each other. Because, even in the US, as a researcher in the US, there are some projects, some research activities that are happening in Kenya that are way beyond what we are working on in the US. For example, Kenya leads ahead in terms of engaging community health workers, and in terms of research that is about sensitization. So, even if there is a view that maybe in the US we have more resources, or but in Kenya also there is very interesting work happening. There are people doing amazing work, and we can all learn from each other. And through collaboration we can find solutions. So there are a lot, like I mentioned, there's a lot of parallels between stigma. For example, in cervical cancer, in Kenya we see stigma is a huge barrier for women to present for care. The same case is in the US. Stigma is a huge challenge that precludes women from seeking care. So even though researchers may be in different contexts, in a way, we see a lot of parallels, and there's a lot that we can learn from each other through collaboration, and we can all find ways to solve these solutions and to come up with creative ways to increase screenings, to increase vaccination. If anything, COVID-19 taught us a lot of lessons. During COVID, the whole world got together. We saw, even after the vaccine was created, we saw vaccine hesitancy across the globe. So globalization is a thing, and the world is becoming smaller, and so researchers are now, it's easier for researchers to collaborate and work together to solve these common problems.
Right, right. I feel like you have something to add to that.
Yeah, I think it's important that we talk to each other in research, because as Dr. Mkuu has said, we avoid duplication of resources. And then there's also opportunity of adapting what has worked elsewhere and testing it here. Then if you had a solution that worked elsewhere, you test it in another setting just to make it suitable for that community or for that environment. And then you can roll it out. It accelerates the uptake of research findings. And therefore, the population gets to benefit from the investment of research. Yeah.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I mean, we all need to talk to each other and compare notes. Here's another thing. I was looking at some numbers, and apparently the National Cancer Control Strategy of Kenya has a number of things, 2023 to 2027. But they're saying about 82,000 people are living with this disease. They're saying about 27,100 or thereabouts die every year. And they're saying about 40% of all cancers can be prevented through avoidance of modifiable risk factors, immunization, making our living environment healthier. These are 40%. This is a huge number. This is what the report is saying. This is what the experts such as yourselves are saying. But the people at home are saying, okay, can you break this down to me? What can I do? Can you give me some tips? Can you give me a toolkit with which I can begin to attack this situation from my small position at home or at work or somewhere? What can I do? What would you say? Let's start with you, sir.
Yeah, I think the latest statistics, as you've said, they paint a picture that we are losing many lives to cancer. And can we avoid? So the modifiable risks. So these are risks which you are not born with. Things to do with the environment that you live in. If it's the air that is polluted, so if we can avoid air pollution, contamination of our environment with heavy chemicals, checking, like we spray food, okay?
Yeah, the pesticides and herbicides.
Yeah. So this food gets to the table. If as a responsible farmer will not spray food today and harvest to take it to the market tomorrow. So, but we don't have a system that measures how much pesticide residue is on our food that is getting in the supermarket or in the market, outside. Wherever you buy it. So when I go to the market to buy, I look for the best tomatoes. Those are sparkling, yellow, red.
Yeah, the ones that look
nice
the best,
tomatoes
really
that look
nice,
the
large.
best. But it doesn't
color.
occur to me. I don't even, and even the person selling does not know when they were last sprayed, because these tomatoes were grown somewhere. They were brought to Nyamakima, for example, and the vendor went and bought them from there. And even the person selling in Nyamakima may not tell where they have come from, because someone brought it in a pickup from wherever they got them. So we call upon ourselves to take responsibility as farmers, for example, that don't spray your food, your crop, and then harvest the following day, because the residue is very high, and some of these residues are toxic and carcinogenic. They can induce the formation of cancer cells. Then there's issues now like alcohol consumption. It has been shown to be a risk. So excessive alcohol consumption use of cigarette smoking, whether it's primary or secondary smoking, is a risk to cancer and other non-communicable diseases. And then your lifestyle, if you don't exercise for enjoyment. Yeah. We walk a lot, but you're walking to work. So right. you are it's a stress walk.
Right.
But do you take that exercise, you have spared some time that now you are exercising because you enjoy and it's good for your health.
Right.
So the stress hormone is not, there's very little adrenaline, you are not under pressure. You may be walking to work daily, yes. It sounds fit, but
doesn't make much of a difference.
Yes, you're walking in stress. But can you do it as a leisure thing? That one has positive effects on the body.
All right, so, Doctor, I think we need that's something I think people need to digest a little bit. When we come back, I want to go for a short break to allow for them to digest what we've just shared. When we come back, the two good doctors here are going to talk to us a little bit more about what we can do to turn the tide, to push back a little bit. Wangari Maathai said, what is your little thing that you can do in this big war? We'll talk about that in a bit when we come back.
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni Ridgeback ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that, so when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO. And the rest of...
What point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that, inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first. Give priority the bigger things.
Usikose kila Alhamis saa 1:30 jioni.
In a world where challenges are as common as opportunities, there are those who dare to defy the odds. They are the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business. It's about embracing uncertainty, pushing boundaries, and turning dreams into reality.
Hata ambao ni pesa ya kusave, wallahi. Ambao mwaka ni pesa nyingi sana.
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
The way we run the business is in a very unforgiving way, where every team member has to bring out their best.
So, to all the dreamers, innovators, and risk takers out there, remember, being an entrepreneur isn't just a job, it's a way of life. Join the journey. Become an entrepreneur. The Grind, Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Here on Beyond the Limit, we celebrate the extraordinary achievements of individuals who redefine possibilities. In a journey of resilience and determination, these individuals demonstrate that limitations are merely stepping stones to greatness.
I'm Nancy Njoroge, a mother of 3.
Right, good people, welcome back on the Inside Tonight. We're talking about cancer. And just before we went on the break, our good doctors here, Dr. Makoha was talking about just some of the things you can do, some of the adjustments you and I can make to make sure that we are fighting this battle against this seemingly formidable opponent. Now, good doctors, there's a question here. Somebody is asking, and it's a long question, but if I may paraphrase, what can we do? What can I do? The people who are watching right now, what can we do to fight this thing? We're not doctors. We're not wonderful researchers such as yourselves. What can we do? Yes. Can we offer everybody something that they can use?
Yeah, definitely. And as Dr. Makoha mentioned, first, we have to take care of our environment and be very aware of the things that are around us that would make us high risk. But we also know that we have science that has shown, especially modifiable risk factors. These are things that you and I can do that have been shown to increase our risk of cancer and to prevent them. So for sure, smoking, there's a direct relationship. Smoking causes cancer. There's no question. The research behind that is very strong. Secondly, alcohol, excessive alcohol use. And
now people would wonder how much is excessive and how much is not.
Yes.
Some people say if I have a capacity for 10 beers a sitting, and some other people would say, one glass of wine and I'm down. So talk to us a little bit about how to measure what excessive looks like.
Yeah, and Dr. Makoha, feel free to add. As a researcher, the first thing I have to say, I'm not the alcohol research expert.
Right.
But there is actually a definition for what is excessive alcohol. For women, it's about 3 drinks per occasion. For men, I believe it's 4 to 5 drinks, but don't quote me on the numbers.
Right.
But there's actually a figure out there that you can look it up and see what is defined as excessive alcohol consumption and also binge drinking. So there's science behind, and those who study alcohol consumption can give the direct numbers. But there is a definition. And so, excessive alcohol, a few years back, the World Health Organization came up with a statement about, we all love nyama choma, for example. So charred meat is also, we need to reduce our consumption because there is science showing that it increases the risk of cancer. So there are behavioral changes. Dr. Makoha mentioned exercise, but we also know fruits and vegetables are very important in terms of reducing the risk of cancer. So the World Health Organization, for example, recommends 5 or more servings of fruits and vegetables a day. So I try to, in my own personal life, try to challenge myself, have a banana in the morning and maybe another fruit in the afternoon. And then in the middle, you have mchicha with your sima, try to really increase, and the more colorful your plate is in terms of fruits and vegetables, the different colors. Exactly. Natural colors, variety of colors means, the color of fruits and vegetables, it means that you're getting a diverse diet, diverse nutrition in terms of micronutrients. Right. So really reducing also foods that are pre-packaged or processed. So think of, when you go into the supermarket, trying to avoid those middle aisles because they're full of processed foods, and try to shop around because that's where the fruits and vegetables are, the dairy, and then the fresh meat. So really being conscious when we are grocery shopping or going to buy food, and thinking about what we are consuming. But I'll pause here and invite you as well.
Okay.
Doctor.
Yeah, thank you so much. Dr. Mkuu has mentioned exercise, what you eat is very important. The environment we live in, how clean the air is very important. And if you are a motor vehicle operator, for example, you run a bus, it's it operates not well serviced. How much smoke is being released, how much lead is being released into the environment, that people who are on that stage are inhaling it. So simple things that we can be responsible as citizens. Let's service our vehicles so that the discharge into of smoke is reduced, and these are things that can help reduce the risk of cancer. May I add also that for those families where you have a close family member who has ever been diagnosed with cancer, there's chances that some cancers are hereditary. You have a gene that has been changed in a way to make the body, to make you more susceptible to cancer. So it's also good for these members of the family to go for screening. Mostly when our family member is diagnosed with cancer, all attention goes to the patient.
To that person, the patient.
And you want to treat the patient once the patient is treated, because it's of the nature of the disease. It requires a lot of money. It's also affecting you. You are worried whether the person will survive or not. Those are things that carry our attention. But after we have done that, after the dust has gone down, we also need to take up responsibility and go for screening to be checked, at least, because having a family member having been diagnosed with cancer also may increase the risk of the other members of the family getting cancer. So if you have a close sibling or a parent,
go for screening.
Go for screening.
Right, soon as possible.
Yes.
Don't wait until later. Now, we've come to this point where I'd like to give each of you an opportunity for a parting shot, a message that is in your heart or on your mind concerning this subject. Dr. Makoha, that's your camera. Dr. Mkuu, this one right here is your camera. Who wishes to start? Let us save the best for last, if we may. Please.
Okay, I want to say that most cancers are preventable, and if they're caught early, they are treatable. So cancer is not necessarily a death sentence. We all need to take responsibility to modify our behaviors to reduce the risk, but also, more importantly, we need to take up the preventive services that are available. Let's go for screening, and for the girls who are between 9 and 13 or 14 there, let's encourage them to go for the HPV vaccine to be prevented from cervical cancer later in life. So urge everyone, let's make this our debate, and let's not fear discussing cancer in our communities or in our settings.
Excellent, excellent. Dr. Mkuu, here's your camera.
Yes,
to the people.
I would like to echo the importance of prevention and the importance of us as a society in acknowledging that cancer is a chronic condition. It is not an individual failure. It is very important, especially for women in our society, to know that screening is really important. We can detect cervical cancer or even breast cancer much earlier. As women especially, we are most affected by it. We think of our families, taking care of our families more before we think of ourselves. But it's important for us to take a break and get screened and get our daughters vaccinated so that we can live long and we can enjoy our families and we can be there for our families. So my message is to the women, because I'm a mother, I know how busy we can be, and we can put the needs of others before ourselves, but it's also important as the caregivers of our society to make sure that we are healthy and we protect ourselves and our families through screening, early detection, and really emphasizing HPV vaccination for our daughters, sisters, cousins. So prevention is really key.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Good people, I hope you have digested all the wonderful things that have been said tonight. Thank you, gentlemen and lady, for coming. Thank you for the insight. And I do hope that this information helps in the fight against cancer.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The pleasure is ours. This has been Inside Tonight with me, Victor Muyakane. Good night and God bless you. Thank you so much.
Ralph, oh my God. Thank you.